right for traffic with exiting
504A King to Distillery. Please wear a mask or face covering when riding the TTC.
Hey guys, it's Monday, August 10th. The time is 3:30 p.m. and the temperature's a pretty hot 30 degrees Celsius. I'm here walking south on Roncesvalles Avenue in the Parkdale neighborhood. The plan for this walk is to head down to Queen Street West, which is just straight ahead here. And then I'll head east through the Parkdale neighborhood along Queen Street West. And at Dufferin Street, I'll head down to King Street. And I'll walk back towards this way, west on King Street. And I think at some point I'll turn north back up to Queen Street, perhaps on Jameson Avenue, and call it a walk from there. And just to the north of here on Roncesvalles Avenue is the neighborhood of Roncesvalles. It kind of blends into Parkdale at this point. Parkdale has traditionally had something of a gritty reputation, although I'm not sure that's so true anymore. Looks like there's some construction going on at the streetcar loop. Just in behind here is the St. Joseph's Healthcare Center, which is a large hospital. This area is just to the west of downtown Toronto. And if we were to continue heading straight, you'll find Lake Ontario. So to the right here is the Queensway, and on the left is where Queen Street West begins. So I'll be heading across that. That's the 501 Queen Street streetcar that just went by. So this part of Queen Street is pretty much the main retail stretch of Parkdale. This will continue on to Dufferin Street, at which point the West Queen West neighborhood will begin, which is considered one of Toronto's top neighborhoods. Parkdale is bordered to the north by the CP rail tracks, which are located just to the north of Queen Street, and to the south by Lake Ontario, and again to the west by Roncesvalles Avenue, where I started this walk, and to the east by Dufferin Street. And the area coming up on Queen, and also encompasses King Street, is also known as Little Tibet. There's a number of Tibetan restaurants in the area. And I think I read something in the neighborhood of 40% of the students at Jameson Collegiate, which is one of the local schools here, are of Tibetan descent. This is something of a rare weekday afternoon walk, for this channel at least, but I am looking to expand the variety of videos on this channel, including the times I record walks on, as well as getting out and exploring more of the city of Toronto and the surrounding region. It's really interesting to capture the same neighborhoods at different times of the day and week. As I'm sure on a Friday or Saturday evening, this neighborhood feels quite different, as it would in the later hours at night, perhaps after midnight. It would be worth checking this place out. And I couldn't tell you what it would normally be like if there were no virus pandemic going on, if it would be this dead or not during a weekday afternoon. It certainly feels pretty quiet. It's usually a bit busier than this when I come through on the weekends or in the evenings. As you can see, that gritty reputation it had developed over the past few decades is pretty much undeserved. It's not quite gentrifying, it's still more coffee time than Starbucks, if you can understand that reference, but it's certainly been improving a whole lot. And I've never felt unsafe here. There's a Tibetan restaurant and Glory Hole Donuts. These are quite good, if not on the expensive side, but that's to be expected. Originally, this was an upper class neighborhood dating back 100 years or so. It was a suburb of the city of Toronto. But in the 1950s, just to the south of here, the city erected the Gardner Expressway, which is the main highway which runs east to west along the southern edge of the city of Toronto. That coincided with the demolition of Sunnyside Amusement Park, which in turn brought an influx of apartment buildings into the area, mostly of the rental variety. And it became a popular place for new immigrants to the country to settle, and the average income of the area dropped quite suddenly at that time. So it went from being an upper class area to generally considered one of the poorer areas of the city. And it was in the 1960s that Canada started accepting refugees from Tibet, as I think it was 1950 or sometime in the early 50s where Tibet lost its independence. There's the Tibet kitchen. And since that time, it's seen a rather large influx of those of Tibetan descent as well as South Asian descent. I've also heard that there's a number of North Korean defectors in this area. I've never been able to verify that. Here's another Tibetan restaurant. This certainly isn't something you see in a lot of major cities, having a whole area of Tibetan restaurants. My experience with Tibetan food is mostly with momo, which is kind of a dumpling style food. This place I've heard lots of things about, the Himalayan Kitchen. I believe that's a Nepalese, Indian, and Tibetan fusion style restaurant. Looks like this is one of the areas set up for an outdoor patio space, which is one of the measures a lot of restaurants have been resorting to stay open during this pandemic, although we are in stage 3. So they are allowed to have dine-in customers. There's another restaurant across the street, Little Tibet. And this place here is something of an institution, although it doesn't look open. Jason's Coffee Shop and Banh Mi. Is it really closed? Man, I remember having a $3 banh mi sandwich in there once. And I hadn't yet been to Vietnam, so I wasn't aware of what a special treat that would be in a city like this. Since then, banh mi shops have started popping up everywhere, but not for $3. There's another one, OM, Tibetan and Indian cuisine. That is Jameson Avenue, which I think I will walk north of Jameson back to Queen Street at the end of this walk. There's a bit of interesting history with Jameson Avenue. And really, I think this is actually a great neighborhood. I would have zero problems living here. You've got the lake to the south, Roncesvalles, which is a fantastic neighborhood on the west end. You have the Queen Street streetcar, which connects you to downtown. And just a handful of really great, affordable restaurants right at your doorstep. And again, I think it's entirely safe. I think as a kid, when I would drive by in the car with the parents, they'd always tell me stories that this was a rough part of town, one of the worst places in Toronto. But if that was true at one time, it's certainly not true anymore. The area still remains within reach to a lot of new migrants to the city and those of lower income, as there's a lot of affordable rental stock, which we'll see just to the south of here. I would like to cross the street and get a look at this restaurant just on the other side. We'll see if traffic will allow. Maybe. Because this place here is kind of a special restaurant. Loga's Corner. There's a guy kind of looking at me. That's a Tibetan Momo restaurant. And the guy who runs it is a refugee. I believe he came from northern India. And he runs that restaurant with his wife. Momo, again, is like a dumpling style food. It's very affordable in there, and there's kind of a cozy neighborhood or living room type environment to eat in. If you're looking to try Tibetan food, I'd highly recommend popping in there. And full disclosure, I haven't really tried any other of the Tibetan restaurants in this area. But I did go there because it was so highly regarded. This place, the Momo House. So if Momo is your thing, this is definitely the part of town. One of those guys back there wanted a Momo and fries, and his buddy wanted a Big Mac. One thing you won't notice a whole lot of in this area is Starbucks. In fact, I don't think there's any. There might be one right around Dufferin Street, and there's one up in Roncesvalles at Dundas and Roncesvalles Avenue. That's always a sign that a neighborhood hasn't quite fully gentrified. But when the dive bars start becoming hip places to go to, that's definitely a sign of gentrification, and that's kind of what's happening here. That was impressive. And that building right there is Gallery 1313. It's a non-profit art gallery. There's a pretty robust art scene in this part of town. Generally, that's normal in Toronto, where you have affordable housing. I'm not sure the status of it now during COVID, but normally they have exhibits featuring local artists. And again, it's not for profit. There's the shameful tiki room. I could not tell you what that is.
How great would it be right now to be like in the middle of the workday and just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna head over there for like a little patio session.
It's a public library. There's a number of divey bars in this area and bacon shops, but it's become a fairly popular spot to drink at. There's one bar in particular up ahead that has a very large patio and large selection of rotating beers on tap. It's called the Rhino. Here's Duggan's Brewery. I might just pop into one of these places and grab a bite and a nice cold drink after this walk. It feels like that kind of day. And it's been a long time. I haven't even been inside a bar or restaurant since this pandemic started. I mentioned in a previous video, among the people I do meet up with, we've kind of just become accustomed to meeting up in parks and patios and balconies. There's a lot of old buildings in this area, but I neglected to look up if any of them were historically significant. Sometimes on my way over to these walks, I'll just do a quick search on my phone to make sure I'm not missing anything particularly special, but that kind of slipped my mind on the way here. There is a Rolling Stones theme bar. And this is the former home of the Cadillac Lounge, which is a rock and roll venue that lasted for 19 years. I think Blue Rodeo played there. That right there is the Rhino with its large outdoor patio. It's a very nice place. Food's pretty good. And there used to be a Cadillac on the sign for this building, but that's long gone. House of Bud Cannabis. So we're getting closer to the West Queen West neighborhood. I always kind of prefer the neighborhoods like this that aren't full of chain shops. You don't see a Shoppers Drug Mart and Rexall and Tim Hortons and Starbucks on every corner. That's always a positive in my books. Not that those places aren't convenient, but to me, it's a sign that a neighborhood has retained a lot of its character. There's the Parkdale Community Health Center. One of the things that led to Parkdale's reputation as being not such a great place was back in the 70s, there was the Queen Street Psychiatric Center, which was located to the west of here. And there was also the Lakeshore Psychiatric Center, which was down in the Mimico or Long Branch area. One of those two. And they had discharged a lot of patients who came to Parkdale to resettle. There's a lady just chilling there with her face painted silver. Tried not to point the camera directly at her. You never know with people sometimes. So this is Dufferin Street. So this is where Parkdale formally ends. Just off to the west there is the Gladstone Hotel. And straight ahead is the Liberty Village neighborhood. Looks like there's an interesting shortcut through the side of that building there. That streetcar turning way off into the distance is heading through Liberty Village. There's a lot of old factories and warehouses that have been converted into loft use and things like that. And some of them have been maintained. So that's been quite a popular area for millennials and 30-somethings to move into. And just to the west of there, you have King West, which is where a lot of the city's bars and nightclubs are. Also on King Street and Queen Street, they both have a streetcar line that runs into downtown. So even though there's no subway that runs east to west out here, this area is fairly well serviced by transit. In general, a streetcar line is much preferable to a city bus. When Alexa woke me up this morning, she told me there was a heat warning in effect. And I can see why. It's one of those classic Toronto summer days. Looks like there's some people with a large number of bicycles straight ahead. Hopefully not the stolen variety.
Cigarette, man. I do.
There's another guy wheeling a bike out. Not accusing anyone of anything, but if I was a gambling man, I'd bet the farm those are stolen. Bikes are still in really high demand in the city. A lot of bike shops even have signs in their windows saying we don't have any stock. So coming up is King Street West, so I'll just make a right on here. This is the still part of Parkdale and Little Tibet. And just down to the left here, which is to the west, is Lamport Stadium, where the Toronto Wolfpack play in a high-level English rugby league. They're the only team outside of the UK. And there is where the area's McDonald's used to sit. It's kind of weird seeing a McDonald's get demolished. Trying to see if I can spot any Tibetan restaurants down here. There's Caribbean. From here on, this part of King Street is mostly residential. There's not a whole lot of interesting retail to see. There's a distracted cyclist right there. So when I get to Jameson, I'll turn a right and head up north. The next time I'm through this neighborhood, if it's a daytime walk, I'll try to work in some more of the residential streets. Most of these streets will connect straight up to Queen Street where we were. Nice kind of sleepy tree-lined streets. A lot of homes and 2- and 3-story apartment buildings like these ones. This block here seems familiar. I think there's a bar on the corner of this building here that I've been to, although it looks boarded up right now. This is Cowan Avenue. Red Lobster opening soon. Well, there's people in there. That's definitely where the bar was. And this, Cowan Avenue, is where you could head up to Loga's Corner, I think, to get some momo. There's a Domino's next to a Filipino takeout. I think my local Domino's knows me by first name by now. And I hope this glare is not too bad. The sun's kind of straight above us, so I apologize for that. I try not to walk directly into the sun. Had I done this just an hour earlier, I'm sure it would have been better. Parkdale United Church. So this area is kind of reminiscent of the eastern side of the city, just east of probably Broadview Avenue. There's a lot of low-rise developments, older homes and apartment buildings, but not much in the way of new development. A lot of those streets like Jones Avenue, Woodbine and Greenwood kind of have this kind of feel to it. That guy's certainly ready for the apocalypse. This is the Holy Family Catholic Church. And to be honest, once we went west of that bar that no longer seems to be open. I don't really ever come down this part of King Street. I've taken my bike down here a few times on bike rides. And I've recorded one or two walks that went along this stretch, but they weren't narrated walks, so I probably just had my headphones on and got lost in a podcast or something. Looks like there's a fire truck responding to a call right there on Jameson Avenue. So if we follow King Street straight here, this will curl up and take us right to Queen and Roncesvalles, where this walk started. There's a Dollarama and No Frills. No Frills is a discount grocery store. Looks like the firemen are walking on this side of the street. So there's a look south down Jameson Avenue. This street starts around Lakeshore and comes up to Queen Street. And this is where a lot of the lower cost housing is in Parkdale. A lot of these buildings don't have the best reputations on the various rental review sites. But like any rental building, they're hit or miss. If you find one with a good superintendent and a reasonable rate, good facilities, clean room, no bed bugs, you're pretty much good to go. Common complaint by residents on this street is there's too much traffic, as it does connect from the Gardner Expressway and Lakeshore to Queen Street, so a lot of cars kind of take this to circumvent the other roads that'll lead you to this part of the city, so it's a bit of a major thoroughfare. This house looks like a holdout from a previous era. She's got a bunch of money in her hand. Some kind of deal was about to go down. There's a look at Parkdale Collegiate. Which is known for, as I mentioned earlier, its large Tibetan student population base. I'd be willing to bet that's kind of a one-in-a-kind situation for a major North American city to have that. Schools should be back in force, or back in at the start of September, and I believe the students will be in class on a part-time basis with some in-home schooling done online mixed with actual in-class work. Masks will be mandatory. Here's someone having a nice day feeding the pigeons. Looks like that fire truck is still back there with its lights going. And this is back to Queen Street West. So I hope you enjoyed this walk through the Parkdale neighborhood along Queen Street, part of Dufferin Street and King Street. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you think I missed anything, any buildings or retail establishments of significance, let me know in the comments. I'm always curious to learn more about the city, and it will serve as a reminder to talk about it the next time I'm through here. There are links to Instagram and my Patreon accounts if you want to check those out in the description. And I think I'm going to turn the camera off and find myself one of those shaded outdoor patios to have a nice cold drink and a lunch. So thanks for watching and stay safe out there.